Why you do this? Understand yourself. Why do some people pull away the moment you open up, even when you were just being honest? You say something real, something vulnerable, and for a second it feels like the conversation might actually deepen. Then something shifts. Their energy changes. Their responses become shorter. The connection that just started forming suddenly feels fragile. And almost instantly your mind asks the same question it has asked before. Did I say too much? But what if that moment isn't actually about you saying the wrong thing? Because the ability to introduce emotional honesty into a conversation requires something many people never developed: the capacity to stay present when things become real. Your nervous system isn't wired to avoid depth. It's wired to create it. And when that openness meets someone whose system learned to avoid emotional exposure, the contrast can feel confusing. Because what feels like connection to you can feel like pressure to someone else. And by the end of this video, you'll understand what that moment is really revealing, and how it can actually tell you more about emotional compatibility than rejection ever could. If you have experienced this pattern more than once, the reaction becomes painfully familiar. The moment you become emotionally honest, the atmosphere changes. Conversations that felt natural suddenly feel fragile. The other person becomes harder to read. Their energy pulls slightly backward. Most people interpret this moment in a very specific way. They assume they made a mistake. They assume their vulnerability was too intense, too emotional, too personal. And because the timing feels so direct, the mind links the two instantly. I opened up, and they pulled away. But what happens in this moment is often misunderstood. Vulnerability does something powerful inside human interactions. It raises the level of emotional depth in the conversation. The atmosphere shifts from surface communication to something more personal. And not every nervous system is prepared for that shift. When emotional depth increases suddenly, people instinctively evaluate whether they can meet it. Not consciously, but internally. Their system asks a simple question very quickly. Can I handle this level of emotional closeness right now? If the answer is uncertain, distance appears automatically. Vulnerability does not only reveal your emotions, it also activates the emotional system of the person listening. When someone shares something real, it invites the other person to respond at the same level. And that invitation can feel intense for people who are not used to emotional openness. For someone comfortable with emotional depth, this moment creates connection. But for someone who avoids emotional exposure, the same moment creates pressure. They suddenly feel expected to respond in a way they may not know how to. And that pressure can trigger withdrawal. The nervous system reacts to emotional closeness the same way it reacts to any unfamiliar intensity. It becomes alert, breathing changes slightly, attention shifts towards self-protection. The body begins searching for ways to reduce the emotional pressure in the moment. This reaction often happens faster than conscious thought. The person may not even realize why they suddenly feel uncomfortable. They only notice that something inside them wants to step back. So they change the subject, shorten the conversation, or subtly create distance. But something important is happening underneath this reaction. When emotional honesty suddenly raises the depth of a conversation, the nervous system has to decide whether it can stay present in that level of openness. And for people who are not used to emotional exposure, the safest response is often distance. Not because vulnerability is wrong, but because their system is trying to reduce the intensity of the moment. For people who avoid emotional intensity, vulnerability can feel overwhelming even when it is expressed calmly. Not because the content is dramatic, but because emotional closeness requires internal openness, and openness requires vulnerability on both sides. If someone has learned to protect themselves by staying emotionally distant, that openness can feel unfamiliar or even unsafe. Their system may interpret it as exposure rather than connection. So instead of leaning closer, they instinctively move away from the emotional depth. And this is where the moment often gets misunderstood. Because when someone pulls away, it can look like rejection. But what is actually happening is something much simpler. Their nervous system is trying to regulate an emotional intensity it doesn't yet know how to stay inside. When someone pulls away after you open up, it is tempting to assume the problem started with you. But often the reaction reveals something about their internal capacity for emotional connection. Their behavior is not actually about you. It reflects the limits of what their nervous system is comfortable experiencing. Some people were never taught how to stay present during emotionally honest conversations. They learn to redirect, minimize, or avoid depth entirely. When vulnerability appears, their system tries to restore the emotional distance they are used to. Many people learned early that emotional openness created discomfort, criticism, or unpredictability. So their nervous system developed the opposite skill, emotional distance regulation. They became highly practiced at reducing relational intensity the moment it appears. What you're witnessing isn't rejection, it's a protection pattern their system learned long before you entered the conversation. Your experience in that moment follows a completely different pattern. When you open up, your nervous system moves toward connection. You allow someone to see something real about you. That step requires trust and emotional courage. It is an act of relational openness. Here's why you react the way you do. When the other person withdraws, your brain interprets it as rejection. The timing makes it feel personal. Your mind quickly scans the conversation looking for mistakes. You begin wondering if your honesty caused the distance. This is where the relational pattern forms. One person moves toward emotional closeness. The other moves away from it. Both reactions happen almost automatically, guided by their nervous systems. Neither person is necessarily trying to hurt the other. Here's how the pattern forms between both of you. The more you try to connect through openness, the more the other person feels pressured to respond emotionally. The more pressure they feel, the more distance they create, and the cycle quietly repeats itself. Many people who avoid emotional depth developed that strategy early in life. In environments where emotions were ignored, criticized, or overwhelming, distance became the safest response. Staying detached prevented discomfort. Over time, this detachment becomes automatic. Emotional vulnerability begins to feel unfamiliar or even threatening. So when someone else introduces emotional honesty into the conversation, the system responds with avoidance rather than engagement. Eventually, these patterns become part of identity. One person becomes the one who opens up, expresses, and explores emotions. The other becomes the one who stays composed, distant, and controlled. Each person begins seeing themselves through that lens. But identities built around protection are rarely permanent. They simply reflect the coping strategies that felt safest in the past. Understanding this helps you see the interaction more clearly. When you recognize this dynamic, something important shifts internally. The moment someone pulls away no longer automatically translates into self-blame. You begin understanding that emotional compatibility matters more than emotional intensity. Not everyone has the same capacity for depth. Some people welcome emotional honesty. Others instinctively move away from it. Recognizing this difference prevents you from interpreting every withdrawal as personal rejection. With this awareness, your approach to connection changes. Instead of forcing vulnerability into every interaction, you begin observing how people respond to small moments of honesty. Their reactions reveal a great deal about their emotional availability. Some people lean in when conversations deepen. Their curiosity increases. Their attention becomes more present. Others redirect the conversation immediately. Those signals quietly reveal who is capable of meeting you emotionally. This clarity changes how you choose your connections. Instead of shrinking your openness to make others comfortable, you begin recognizing where your emotional depth is welcome. You stop trying to earn closeness from people who avoid it. Your vulnerability becomes a filter rather than a risk. It reveals who is emotionally available and who is not. The people who remain present when conversations become real are the ones capable of genuine connection. Over time, something important begins to change in the way you see these moments. When someone pulls away after you open up, your mind may still feel the old reflex to analyze the interaction. But instead of assuming you were too much, you begin asking a different question. What did this moment actually reveal about emotional compatibility? Vulnerability doesn't only create connection, it also reveals capacity. Some people can stay present when conversations become emotionally real. Their attention deepens, their curiosity increases, they lean into the moment instead of stepping away. Others feel their nervous system tighten almost immediately. They change the subject, they shorten the conversation, they subtly create space, and that reaction is information. A small practical step can help you see this more clearly. The next time you open up and feel someone pulling away, pause for just a moment before analyzing yourself. Take one slow breath and ask internally, did the connection deepen, or did the other person become less present? This tiny shift moves your attention away from self-blame and toward observation. Instead of assuming you caused the distance, you begin reading the relational dynamic itself. And that is the moment vulnerability stops feeling risky and starts becoming clarifying. The fact that you're still here means something important. Part of you is ready to stop interpreting your openness as a mistake. Your vulnerability was never the problem. It was simply revealing emotional differences between nervous systems. Some people learn to move toward depth, others learn to move away from it. Both patterns are survival strategies. Both are nervous system memories from earlier environments. But once you see the pattern clearly, something shifts inside you. You stop trying to shrink your honesty to keep others comfortable, and you start noticing who can actually stay present when you become real. For the first time, the moment someone pulls away doesn't automatically mean rejection. It means information. Something in you is beginning to see that clearly now. The quiet question your nervous system can begin asking is simple. Did this moment reveal distance? Or did it reveal who can truly meet me? Something in you is ready to stop chasing connection where depth cannot exist. And here's the question I'd genuinely love to hear your answer to. Have you ever opened up to someone and realized their reaction revealed more about them than it did about you?